All right. I guess I can go ahead and get started. I wasn't going to do a live stream tonight. I haven't put up any posts for at least a week now, I think. And that's because so much is self evident. I sure don't have to point much out. But it is Friday night, 9th of February, 2023. And I thought I'd just throw this out here and just say, what's up? What's happening? I guess it would be easier to say what isn't, right? I mean, there's so many things plugging along in so many different ways. Hard to keep up with everything that's happening. 5 by 5, that's good to know. Thank you very much. Hey, Walter, 2 Timothy 3, Mike Baker, Dennis Corder, Murph, Philip Basham. Basham, that's an interesting name. William Skull. All right. On 5 by 5, I appreciate that. I haven't got any specific subject matter tonight. As you all probably know who have been following me, I'm on a road trip. I'm in Washington State. We've had some family challenges, and so I'm up here trying to help out as best I can. These days are really, I think, supposed to teach us that what really matters is family. It really is friendship. It really is loving your neighbor. It really is reaching out and just doing what you can to help others. No, this isn't going to be a spiritual discussion tonight. At least that's not my intent. Uh, I think I've done quite a bit of that. I've really shown everybody, where I am, where I'm going, what I think, what my worldview is. And not that anybody really cares. We all have our own individual things that make us who we are and things that interest us and that kind of thing. Just because I talk about my particular interests and my worldview doesn't necessarily mean that should be yours. And I would hope that it isn't. I would hope that you have your own good fruit. Because the type of fruit that you have isn't as important as that it's good fruit, that it's not rotten, it's not poisoned, it's not something that's going to hurt you or someone else. But it should be individual. Every tree has its own fruit. And so when you find these different organizations, be they political, sociological, uh, ecclesiastical, whatever, that try to put you into a mold and insist that you fit inside that mold, that's a danger sign. Because, in my view, um, your choices will manifest whether they're good or bad on their own. And sometimes it might take quite a while. Sometimes it might take just one shot at it. Another time it might take a whole lifetime, and you get on the other side, and your whole life flashes before you, as they say, and you say, "Oh, I should have maybe done things a little different." But I think my point is that your fruit is what's important. If God only wanted apple trees on the earth, we'd only have apple trees. The fact of the matter is that the evidence is that He is a God of multiple varieties. I don't mean that He's multiple varieties. I mean that's what He goes for. Is creation is variety is one thing is different from another, um, and so I think our responsibility is really to be who we are, however that manifests itself. I use that word a lot, manifests. But to make it good fruit, whatever it is that we do, that it's good fruit. Kind of like the old medical professional Hippocratic oath, used to be do no harm. Of course, they don't believe that anymore. It's how much money can we make, right? That's how it is now in the medical establishment. But as far as our individual lives and what we do, I don't think God is quite the prudish entity, being, father that many ecclesiastical or even just believers will try to make you conform to to something. and we've seen that through history. And my experience now is that it really isn't that way. Maybe yours is that you got to fall in line with some religious regulation or whatever, but that's not been my experience. My experience is that God will sanctify you if you do what's right under the circumstances that you find yourself. So that's probably about all that I'll say religiously tonight. Uh, and along that same line, I think, as I've said, maybe I've just said too much. Maybe I've said too much. Maybe I've bared myself too much. Maybe I've expounded on my viewpoints too much. And it wasn't so much because I was looking for a confirmation from others. Oh, if they believe what I believe, well, then I must be right. No, my viewpoint on that is quite a bit different too. My experience has been that to go along with the crowd is usually the wrong thing to do. As a matter of fact, 99% of the time, it's the wrong thing to do. So I won't get into any other dogma tonight or anything like that. That's really not my intention. Just to let you know that I'm probably going to leave you alone in those areas pretty much now. I think I've pretty much said everything. I've said that before. I've said everything I need to say, and then something else comes up. That little thing that happens at night, when I'm trying to go to sleep and I've thought about a subject all day. It's been weighing on me, and I go, no, I don't want to talk about that, but I can't go to sleep until I do. And so I do those late night live streams or whatever, talking about some particular spiritual subject usually when that happens. Yeah, we're going to talk about Tucker a little bit here too. What does this say? Tucker ABC gang. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Tucker. I will say this, as far as where we are right now, it's gotten to the point where, yeah, things are being revealed. The apocalyptic meaning of revealing of the reveal is definitely happening. We're seeing manifest before us those who have said that they are righteous judges, and we find out that they're not. Righteous rulers, righteous priests. They all claim that, and we're finding out that that's not the case. Just because they say it is, or because somebody ordained them as such or voted them as such, doesn't make them that way. By the way, this isn't going to be a religious discussion because this is Merlot with Sprite. So it's a spritzer, just so you know, all right? Well, the spool is unwinding, and that can be a good, somebody said that, the spool is unwinding. Who said that? Alan, the spool is unwinding? Yeah, that's true, but that's also a danger because when it unwinds, you can get entangled in it yourself. And that's why I think it's very important that we separate ourselves as much as possible, that we stand aside from a lot of this. Not that we don't take part, that we don't make our voices known, that we don't stand up for what's right. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have to be careful not to get caught up in the web. You know what I mean? What did you think about the last 30 seconds of the Tucker Putin interview? No one will be able to separate the soul. I didn't get that from it. Separate. I think what he was talking about is separate the soul from Russia, the Russian soul from Russia. I think that's what Putin was talking about. That's what he's talking. He's not talking about your soul not being able to go wherever. He's talking about the soul of Russia. You're not going to be able to separate the soul of Russia from Russia, and I agree. And it's unfortunate, but we've seen in the last few years that those powers that be that are out there, we can call them the New World Order, we can call them the Bilderbergs, we can call them the Davos Group, the WEF, the UN, whoever, the Jesuits, the Zionists, whoever you want to point at. Hey, Roosevelt, nice to see you. They impact a lot upon us. And I think in the United States and in the Western societies, they have separated our soul from us as a society, as a group of societies. Not only because of what they've changed as far as the morals are concerned and our outlook on who we are, men and women, that kind of thing, but also the mixing of cultures. If I want to be in another culture, I'll go visit it. If I want to see what an Indian, meaning the nation of India, if I want to go to India and see that culture, I want to be able to travel there. I don't want my home to be Indian, the nation of India. If I want to go see how the tribesmen and Aborigines are in Australia, I want to just be able to go there and see them. I don't want my culture to become that culture. And yet, what's being forced on us isn't a realization that there are other people with other viewpoints and other concepts and other worldviews. What's being forced on us is that we're being told that we have to integrate and be like them. As a matter of fact, in some Western societies now, if you don't do that, you can be held liable under the law and jailed for it. That's all wrong. Okay, there's a reason for, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, for the varieties that we see in life. And to mix those up too much, you lose the richness. You don't. Your diversity doesn't make you richer. It's when it's forced, when it's conglomerated, like a stone, a conglomerate stone, an agate. You lose your identity, and so that's really hell. When you lose your identity, you've gone to hell. You've gone to the cold place. Yeah, Babel, however you want to say it. So, like I said, I thought I'd just come on tonight. I'm probably talking too philosophically, too spiritually, and I don't mean to do that. I think what I'm going to do is mostly take questions. Of course, everybody's talking about the Tucker Carlson interview with President Putin, and I've noticed some people have already brought that up. Someone misunderstood the last few minutes there of the Putin interview, and that was the soul of Russia. You won't separate the soul of Russia from Russia. That was the issue there. I think that Tucker Carlson has done the entire world a big favor by doing this. I was a little disappointed. Let me tell you why. Okay, there were a lot of people that were screaming about him being a traitor. Bill Kristol and different talking head pundits, and Hillary Clinton. Saying that Tucker Carlson's a useful idiot and that he's Putin's puppet. Well, the fear that I saw in those people, because they didn't know it was coming either, apparently, most of them. The fear that I saw in them was that they thought that Putin was going to take the cloaks off of them, take Hillary Clinton's cloak off her veil, take the cloak off of Biden, take the cloak off of name them, right? And so they were trying to get out ahead by saying that whatever Putin says is a lie and that Tucker Carlson's a liar and a useful idiot. So they were trying to get people so that if Putin did reveal anything about them personally, that they would have something in there that they could defend themselves with. In other words, they had a guilty conscience. And what was refreshing in the interview with Putin is he didn't point the fingers at anybody. I think the only person he actually meant, he could have mentioned a lot of people, but he didn't. He did talk about Biden very circumspectly, basically. But he didn't sit there and name, Hillary Clinton did this, and Bill Clinton did that, and Obama did this, and, Bush did this. He didn't do that. He did say that there were problems in the U.S. structure, governmental and corporate structures, that have caused it to fall, and that it's going to continue to fall, but that Russia will remain the moral and constructive nation, not destructive, but constructive nation that is there their vision of themselves. And I think that that's happened. And that shows you that the body, like a fish, they say a fish rots from, it starts at the head and then works down. Well, that's very true too. Our government went sour, the United States government, and most European governments went sour many years ago. We have bad leaders in there, whether they've been bribed or whether they're the problem too, it doesn't matter. The point is that they've been corrupted to the point where now the whole body is now corrupted and decaying. You can see it, and that's what these people were worried about. That Putin was going to point all that out, and he did to some extent, but he didn't dwell on it. What he did is he wanted to tell you about his nation, about his culture, because most Americans don't understand the Russian culture. They've been told a pack of lies by the American establishment, by the Anglo-American establishments, for reasons I won't get into here. But I think Putin was wise in saying, this is us, this is what we are, this is who we are, this is where we come from, this is what we view, this is what we'd like. We'd like peace. We'd like to get past all of this, but we're not going to be pushed around either. We're not going to have you come and put a gun to our backs or the back of our head and threaten us that you're going to blow our brains out if we don't go into your system. Okay, so he stood his ground, but his most important thing, his first 30 minutes was about their history, to show that they have a 1,000-year history. What's our history in the United States? Coming up on 300 years. That's nothing compared to a millennium. Now they've gone through a lot of bad things, but the whole thing with the Russian Revolution and the communists and all that, for any of you who have studied history or the politics of the thing, you should know that Lenin and Trotsky and all those guys, Marx before them, Frankfurt School, all these different things, these were funded by capitalists in New York City, D.C., and London, because they wanted to usurp control over Russia. And the unfortunate thing is that some of the Russian leaders, unfortunately and tragically, got into the employment of killing and starving their own people to force this new system in that in the end didn't work. Well, ours doesn't work either. If ours worked, we wouldn't be printing billions and trillions of dollars that are now almost worthless. So our system doesn't work either, which is kind of interesting. And the world's waking up to that. So with that little background information, I love the history too. Of course, my education is in history. I think most people have figured that out by now. History is my thing, and it's Putin's too. I understand he has a degree in history, is what I found out. And of course, Russian history. He would, being the president of Russia and being as astute and intelligent and as interested in his people and his country, his culture he would know a lot about it, and that I think should speak volumes of greatness about Putin. Biden couldn't tell you what's in the Declaration of Independence. He couldn't do that. He probably couldn't tell you more than a couple of founding fathers of this country. He can't even remember, as we found out, when the attorney, Hoover, however you say his name, after the Putin interview, then Hoover, of course, who was looking into the possible criminality of Biden with his mishandling of classified documents, said that he, as most of you know now, said that he basically that Joe Biden is too senile. He doesn't know the time of day. He doesn't have a culpability, mens rea. He doesn't have it because he's insane. He's past his time. He doesn't know anything. He's gone. Well, that's good. Well, how come he's the president of the United States? What happened to Article, the 25th Amendment, rather, that they were screaming about for Trump? We need to get rid of him under the 25th Amendment. But The Republicans are saying that about Biden, and he's obviously a problem. Well, what this is showing us is that the president doesn't run the country. I hope that's what you understand. The president doesn't run the country. He's just the figurehead to take all the blame or whatever. Maybe be elevated for a little bit of time, have his 4 years of glory, 8 years of glory, or whatever. But he doesn't run the country. Obama actually runs the country more now than Biden does. But it's the bureaucracy, it's the deep state. For lack of a better term, people will call them the elites or whatever. That's who actually rules us, and that's pretty much the case everywhere. I think the idea of representative government is a facade, is a lie, uh, and what they do with this system now is that if you don't go along with it, there's something wrong with you, rather than there's something wrong with the system. Well, I'm just pontificating now and all that, and I guess I shouldn't do that, but I felt kind of a responsibility that, well, maybe I ought to go on for a few minutes, even though it's Friday night. Yeah, it was one of those. As I said, I'm in Washington State helping family members, and they had to go somewhere else for some things, and so I'm watching the house, and it's a good thing I did. There's been some problems here while they've been gone. No one had been here. It could have been bad, but at any rate, I was going to go out tonight and kind of see the town a little closer than what I've done in the past. I like to go to establishments where there are, people and stuff like that. We like pontificating. Well, yeah. Anyway, and I just couldn't get into it. How have I been? Yeah, Pocahontas thing. Yeah, it's the family's going through some rough times right now, and this isn't because of the COVID thing or anything associated with that. It's some other things. It is. Some people aren't well, and unfortunately, the medical establishment, in my judgment, has really deteriorated. They can't seem to do anything anymore. They're so specialized that they only look at their thing, and even if they see something that doesn't look right, they don't look at it or even refer anybody to another medical professional, whatever, for review because it's not their problem. It's really bad. It's good news that Congress could not pass a separate bill for aid to Israel. Yeah, I agree with that. Thanks, Roosevelt. This whole thing with Israel is out of line. I think it's hilarious that the very same people that claim that they were genocided several decades back are now in that same process. They denied that's what it is, but it's obvious. I mean, what they're doing is no less evil than what they claim was done. They claim was done to them by that European country. World War II situation. The hypocrisy is just unbelievable, and that's another thing that I've come to. I'm very disgusted, even with people that I've known for some time that have got this idea that Israel is God's chosen people, and they have no idea what they're talking about. None whatsoever. None. You can call yourself anything you want. You can claim anything you want. If you don't do the fruits, you ain't it. Pretty simple. Who's this? Did I hear of the Marsha Jack? Did I hear the passenger was bleeding out of his eyes and nose? No, I didn't. Not sure what that would be about. Uh, I might mention one thing. I brought up this. I got it with me. I brought up this book here some time ago, right? The Origins of Judaism by Jonathan Adler. And in my religion series, I talked quite a bit about where Adam came from. That he wasn't put together like a brick, like a sculpture, or you know, formed out of clay like you would a pot, but that he was actually born in another area and then brought to what was called the Garden of Eden. And Adler gets into that. I thought I'd just read this real quick because it's kind of interesting. Because that also gives you a clue as to where Eve was from. If the Adam and Eve story isn't just allegory um, or metaphor. But let me read this to you because I think it's kind of interesting. Uh, he brings this up on page 77 of this book, and it's under Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha. This is what he says. He's talking about the period of separation for different things. Most of you might not know what that means, but it's like when a woman would have a child, she'd stay separated because of the blood and all that and the danger of contamination or whatever. She'd separate herself for a period of time. But this is the part that I want to read, and it's in the next to last paragraph on page 77. He says this: Adam waited 40 days, listen to this, quote, in the land where he had been created before being brought into the Garden of Eden. And most people say, well, we kind of read that. It says that God formed man from the dust of the ground and then planted a garden eastward of Eden and then put Adam in there. But we sometimes miss that the process was natural. Metaphorical or not, the process is always the same. Now, what's interesting is you have people like these genetic scientists and Bill Gates, even Elon Musk to some extent, certainly Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Harari, Klaus Schwab's sidekick, and I wanted to use a pejorative there, but I won't. And, they want to substantially alter what human beings are. Well, isn't that what the serpent wanted to do in the Garden of Eden? Alter mankind to some extent? Yeah. And God let him do it to a certain extent. Kind of makes you wonder where we are and what's going on, doesn't it? There are those who say that we're getting ready to make a leap as human beings into, if we pass this test, we're going to leap into a whole nother type of existence, not dissimilar from what we have now, but more wholesome, more fulfilling. In some ways, I don't know how that could be. I guess that's the miracle of it. But the point is that Adam lived somewhere else for quite some time before he was brought into this Garden of Eden and what that really means. So, leaving all of that behind, I'm glad that Tucker Carlson interviewed Putin. I think it was a glass ceiling. It was absolutely necessary. It showed many of our leaders were fearful that they would be unveiled, that their crimes might be unveiled by Putin, and he did not do that. Not that he couldn't have. He did point out that the CIA was involved in the Maidan coup under Victoria Nuland. He did mention that to some extent. We know that they've done that all over the world. And it was interesting that Tucker Carlson brought up Evan, I forget his last name, the supposed Wall Street journalist that was arrested for espionage in Russia. And yeah, I think he is CIA. I think it's pretty obvious. I better plug in my phone here. It looks like I'm going to lose power. Whoops, sorry about that. Let me get this. I can see we're starting to have an issue there. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Should have done that earlier just to make sure we could keep going. Hopefully enough people saw that the fear-mongering about Russia and about Putin in particular will be abated to some extent, but I also realize that there are those who are going to stir more hatred up if they can. They will do that because that's what devils and demons do. They stir up hatred and discontent. which is another reason why I'm kind of backing off. I backed off my political things for a while because I figured I'd said everything, and I've done all this religious study with all of you, especially in the Hebrew, and a lot of you are asking, well, Roy, why do you do that if you think there's a problem with the origins of Judaism? Because it's the origins of Judaism I have an issue with, not the history of the Israelite culture and people. Big difference. And I realized that there were, obvious political and other changes made to the what was considered Holy Writ, and I think most of you folks that follow me know that that's how I look at it. I don't consider any Holy Writ, what's considered Holy Writ, to be ineffable and immutable and infallible. No, not a chance. And my studies in the etymology of the words, the linguistics, the cultures, and all that have proven that to me. And so I've really come down even more into what, especially Christians, anybody in the Abrahamic religions would consider um, heretical, tough luck, that there's really only one system with three principles, I would say, that seems to me to not have divisive issues, whether on dogma, doctrine, or whatever. People might disagree with me on this, but this is where I've gone to, and I'll be held in contempt by a lot of people. I already am, because I don't espouse their particular point of doctrine or dogma, or I don't aspire to know their particular version of God or whatever. I think there are three principles, though, that you can safely back into, and these are not divisive, except with the very, very evil, most evil people that want to use them against you. But there are three things, I think, that go along with godliness and trying to emulate godliness, not sacrificing animals for your sin, not not demanding that you don't touch a woman. These are all things, of course, in Judaism to some extent, and even Christianity and Islam. All these prohibitions, I thought God was a God of liberty. What's this business about these Napoleonic laws? There's a difference between. I've talked about this way long ago. There's a difference between Napoleonic law, which is basically that everything is prohibited unless explicitly permitted. And then you have the law of liberty, which is that everything is permitted unless it is expressly prohibited, and it's a very small list. So the three principles that I think would bind people together and not be divisive, except those who want to have control over you, because then they will come by and say, no, you have to accept this, or you have to accept that, or whatever, and thereby cause strife and contention. There are three things, and you've heard me talk about two of them quite a bit, actually all three. And they are love God, right? The two great commandments: love God. You may not understand him, but love God, have awe for him, have respect, revere him, and maybe if you're lucky, he will show himself to you. The second is to love your fellow man as yourself. Now, the Jews get around that by saying, well, no, it's just saying just love your Jewish friend. You're supposed to hate the Goy, and you're supposed to hate the Amalek, and hate everybody else, and destroy them so that you can inherit the earth for you and your posterity. I know. Not all Jews look at it that way, but enough of them do, and it's in the Talmud, and it's even in the Torah. So those two things, the two great commandments: love God and love your fellow man, treat him as you would like to be treated yourself. Don't do anything to somebody else you wouldn't want done to you. Pretty simple. Everybody can understand that. That's a gospel. Everybody can understand that. Everybody in the world can understand that. And then finally, the law of liberty. Everyone wants to have some autonomy, some freedom, some liberty. Obviously, liberty means uh, not unbridled freedom. Liberty means freedom with responsibility. So the choices that you make, the fruits that you exhibit, can be wide ranging, very wide ranging, but they have to be done in such a manner that they're conducive to life, really, to life. So right now we have some things going on. You already know where I sit on the war in Palestine. I'm going to call it. People hate it when I do that, but I'm just going to say that for reasons. Um, it's very, very wrong what's happening over there. I'm not saying that what Hamas did was good back on October 7th. You all know that. But considering what's happened now, the mass murder of I think it's approaching 40,000 people now, and it'll be more than that before this thing's over with. People that aren't carrying guns and all that, they're just destroying their homes. They're destroying their lives because they're forcing them out of the land. I saw a picture or a video the other day where they're shooting kids, and you know who I'm talking about. They're shooting kids, unarmed women, unarmed men, animals. You know why they kill the animals? Two reasons. One, because they don't want them to have food. That's one reason. But there's a bigger reason, and it has to do with the idea of eliminating everything to do with the Malak, even their animals. And this is coming to you, Americans. This is the people that are in control right now. This is that same thing that's happening in Gaza. They want to have happen worldwide. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Hopefully that's nothing serious. I'll check it in a few minutes. All right. And then we've got the situation with Ukraine. I think that's probably, we know where that is and what's going on there. I thought it was really interesting that I think Putin said this. Putin pointed out, I think, that Zelensky's Jewish. And yet the Nazi regime there, maybe I shouldn't have said that on YouTube, has been supporting him. That should raise all kinds of eyebrows. So there's something wrong with that entire thing, and we've talked about that to some extent before. But the bottom line is, as you know, that the United States and England and France and Germany are very much responsible for what's happening in Ukraine, and it's unjustifiable. A lot of innocent people have paid the ultimate price, and for what? So I won't go there either. Obviously, people like Biden have things that are hidden there. They've been using Ukraine for a lot of nasty things for a long time, and they want that to continue. And in case it does go away, they're milking the Americans and the European people, taking taxes from them to conduct their murder and mayhem for their own gain. I'm talking about the elites like Biden and et cetera, military-industrial complex. But then we're being invaded here too. Like I said, if I want to go to another culture, I'll go visit it. I don't want it to take over my culture. But here we are. And it's around the corner, ladies and gentlemen. It's around the corner. So I hope you're getting ready for it as best as you can. We're almost overwhelmed at this point right now. I'm not saying everybody that's coming is bad, but you don't need that many. When these militarily trained and at least military aged men in particular are finally told to do their thing, they don't have to have all of those 20, 30 million that are here doing it. They just destabilize us financially. But when they do these other things, guerrilla warfare, it's going to be nasty. And you're going to be blamed for it, not them. Just be aware of that. So the United States has been cursed. A lot of people could say it's because of all the innocent younguns that have been dismembered, etc. I think you know what I mean. I'm talking kind of cryptically here for important reasons. Don't want to have this taken down. I've already said a couple of things I probably shouldn't have. And then this whole thing with the confusion of men and women in all of its manifestations as evil. But Roy, you said if you do the right thing, God will honor fruit. Well, it still has to be within certain parameters. Uh, and we've gone too far. So we are cursed. I said that on X the other day. We are cursed. And you see the powers that be don't have Biden in there just because he'll do their bidding. They're sending a message that you're done. That your lives, your order of things is coming to an end, that it's outlived its usefulness, and he's the symbol of your destruction. That's what that's all about. No, I don't think Trump's going to save us. I wrote in on X the other day about the only thing that's going to be good coming out of Trump that I can see, and this is if he actually follows through, is if he pardons the J6ers. There are a few that shouldn't be pardoned, but most of those are federal agents or federal assets who actually did a lot of the damage and the crime. But regardless, will he actually blanket pardon the J6ers? I wouldn't hold my breath. He was touting today, I think he was in Vegas. I'm not sure exactly where he was. I think it was in Vegas. I'm not sure though. Touting that he's the greatest supporter of the Second Amendment, the greatest friend to gun owners. Well, that history doesn't prove out at all. Words and actions don't match up, and I've said that for a long time. What's happening on the ground doesn't match his rhetoric, so I'm not looking forward to that he will do anything of any substance. We heard all this before and then nothing. So we'll see. But if all he does get done, if he gets in, if all he does get done is pardon all those people that have been unjustly persecuted and prosecuted by the federal government, if he can get those out, that will be good enough for me, actually. I could get into a lot more subjects, but let's see what you're interested in, okay? Pardon me for doing this. Yeah, they bleed our wealth, what wealth we did have. Wow, a lot of comments on here. Yeah, Christine Andrews, lineage always done with only male names. Yeah, that's why I talk about the numbering of Israel, especially. There was a time that there was a book written. I can't remember the name of the author, but it's when God was a woman. Different societies have had female only goddesses, male only gods, and then there are others that have had the combination. And I've talked about that with the Tetragrammaton and how I view that, and that the image of God is male and female. And you can't have one without the other. And if you do, you're cursed. So, I have my own feelings on that. Roy, why do our elites hate Russia? Well, a lot of reasons. This goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, we saw Napoleon try to go there to take over. The Romans, the Germans, and now the Americans and the Anglo-American alliances. It's because they are such a close-knit society. They're not given to the Orthodox Christian, for one thing, Russian Orthodox, but they are Christian, Orthodox Christian, and the elites hate that. You might think I hate Christianity. I don't hate Christianity. I hate how it has been corrupted. As I've said, the Abrahamic religions are all corrupted, and Christianity isn't exempt from that. But by and large, the Russians are a Christian nation. They have been for over a millennia. So that's one reason. The other reason is that there are great amounts of resources there that the corrupt want to get their hands on. They thought they had it all done in the early '90s when the wall fell, and Gorbachev, you know, decided to give in and all of that and everything that's happened since then. They started to rob Russia, and everything was fine until Putin came in and stopped it, and that's why they hate him. So they hate Putin more than they hate Russia, but it's basically because of their unity, their cultural um, cohesion, and their resources. Yeah, that's basically the reason why. And evil hates good, don't they? Doesn't evil hate good? They don't need a reason. Yeah, people, Debbie, good point. Do people forget Operation Warp Speed? You know, I Americans and even Europeans to some extent have the shortest short-term memories I've ever seen. It's frustrating. But then again, there's psychological warfare, and I've talked about this before. The amount of information that's thrown at people today, they're presented with a problem, and before they can resolve that, they're presented with another problem or several problems. In military parlance, that's called mass. You throw so much at the enemy that they can't respond to it all. And that's the reason why they do all this. So people forget. How they can forget, I have no idea. I mean, I don't. I might put something up on the shelf for a little while, but I haven't forgotten it. And that's why I've come to understand that the U.S. government is evil. Plain and simple. And you're the enemy. And I think we're seeing that. I've talked about it, especially with things like the FBI for a long time. Trotskyites in the State Department, yeah, and also people like Victoria Nuland. Oh, I don't know, Marcia Jack. The destroyer will appear in April. Yeah, if you're talking about um, the planet Nibiru and all that, I'm not really much into that. I keep seeing these videos, if this is what you're talking about. I keep seeing these videos of proof that it's there, and all that. And in further investigation, it never pans out, you know. Uh, I'll tell you who the destroyer is in my estimation. It's our own people. Look what they're doing to themselves. Willingly, anxiously. I don't worry about too much about Nibiru. Christine Andrews, yeah, I know. Moses, nobody found Elijah on Mount with Jesus. I know. There are problems with those stories, and I won't go into that. Like I said, I'm not going to get into that tonight. That's really not what I'm about. I said I wasn't going to, and I've already done too much already. Yeah, the eclipse. Yeah, the April 17th. Matter of fact, it's kind of funny. I might even be up here through April, the way things are looking. But I was here in this exact same place during the eclipse that went down through, started up northwest, and then headed to the southeast on April 17th of 2000, or April 12th of 2000, or April. Was it August or September? I guess it was September. August or September of 2017. I was here for that first one. The second one that's going to cross, and it's going to cross right, I think it's somewhere in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, where the X will be made, is on April 12th, I think, or so, maybe somewhere in there. And I think there is something to that. I think, because however you view the prophecies and how they've been manipulated in the Hebrew Bible, there are some. It was obvious that a lot of the people that wrote that stuff understood the sky. As I've said, it's points on the ground, and so they mark important times and places. April 18th is that the day, and so it's very likely that something significant will happen this year, and I just hope that everybody can get ready for it. April 8th. Somebody said the 18th, and another said the 8th. Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I'm not. Is it the 8th? Okay, everybody's saying it's the 8th. Okay, good. Yeah, 17th of August, 2017. Well, very good. Some of you are
keeping up on that. Like I said, I'm aware of it, but I'm looking forward to this next day. Planet X is very real. Plenty of old scrolls. Oh, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying that the videos that I see where it's it's like right off. I mean, you can see it with the naked eye. I've not seen anything significant on that. I'm not saying that there couldn't be. As a matter of fact, there are some other things that were researched about 200 years ago, uh, coming up on 200 years ago now, and it talks about a wandering. That's what planet means, by the way. Did you know that? The word planet really means wanderer. That's what it means. And so there is one that wanders quite a bit, and the legend of Marduk and Tiamat is actually even evident in Genesis. Isn't that funny? It's even evident in Genesis. So something like that did occur. What it actually was, I don't know. Was there a planet that got too close to Jupiter or whatever and blew up, and that's what we have now is the asteroid belt? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Very possible. Let's see what else we got here. We've already been going for almost an hour. I can't believe it. It goes by really quick. Okay. We're in a technocracy. Yeah, I think technocratic tyranny, I think, is exactly what it is. And that's kind of funny because, uh, you had uh, Albert Einstein who said that, the world ought to be ruled by scientists. Well, how's that worked out? Because it has been for some time. It's in a lot of ways. That hasn't worked out well at all. No, what we need to do is have people just be left alone. Brian of High Impact Flicks, he talks about the benefits of um, not having any government. You know, and I think there's a problem with not having any government, but I definitely think that it needs to be extremely limited. Nothing like what it's supposed or what it's become now. Um, so who knows? Maybe that's where we're going to end up. Matter of fact, there's a scripture that says something about that. It says, I think it's in Isaiah. It might be in Zechariah. It's where he says, "You won't go around asking if somebody knows God because everybody will know Him. You won't have to ask if you know the God of our God because everybody will know Him." Yeah. Um, Russia is a wealthy nation, yeah, in a lot of ways. Wealthy they have their problems. They have their oligarchs and they have their thugs and all that, just like everybody does. But you look at overall what they are and how they compare to what our nation has become. We're a nation of degenerates. I mean, yeah, we have good people. I'm not saying we don't. And maybe eventually, despite all the efforts by the FBI and those types of people to intimidate those who believe in the basic principles of liberty and justice and the Bill of Rights, for instance, uh, maybe at some point in time in the future, uh, these corrupt government agencies will be outnumbered and will be taken away. I'm not holding my breath, but we're being socially engineered. Yeah, you know what? Back in the '70s when I first went in the military, that was the first thing I noticed about the military. It was the first thing I noticed. I went off, I'd been in ROTC. I didn't see it much there, but I got into the military police school and officer basic course. And I started seeing some strange stuff, how they were operating. And by the time I got to my first duty station, it was crystal clear to me that the military, one of its first objectives, one of its first missions,
is to socially engineer. Now, you have to do that to some extent in the military. You have to tear down, the people's ego, the troops' ego, and then, build them back up into a cohesive unit. And I understand that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that right away it was used to socially change the United States. And I won't get into the way that happened uh, because a lot of people get offended by it, and I don't feel like going there tonight. But they did. It was being used as a social engineering institution to help change the entire nation. And now we see how far that's gone to where the FBI, I know it's not military, but the FBI now is talking about, their LGBTQ stuff and how important it is so that they can do their job better, or that Air Force female general who was saying that, our fighting force has to be diverse in the way that they're trying to make it diverse, not in the way that it would be helpful. But it's destructive because it tears down the very fabric of what society is, especially the man-woman relationship. They're out to destroy that, and I've talked about that for a long time. So, unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And the military, you have your DEI and your CRT and all these different things that they're doing to impact the rest of society. And a lot of folks aren't joining the military because of this nonsense. So now what are they going to do? Well, here we go. In old days, the Roman army was made up of foreigners. Did you know that? Because it got so ridiculous that the Roman people didn't want to take part in the military. Well, what's happened now, and what's caused it? And now we're going to have people that have no idea of our. I mean, we have Americans, both politicians, bureaucrats, officers, military, law enforcement people, et cetera, who take the oath to the Constitution and have never read it. They have no idea what it's about. And look at the abuse that they put the people through. How do you think it's going to go with these people that they're bringing in from out of the country who know nothing of our social constructs, our culture, or our history? Certainly not our ideas of liberty and justice. And they're going to become police officers and soldiers. The end is very close, ladies and gentlemen, for the United States. Very, very close. Remove virtue and you get vice. Boy, isn't that the truth? The question is what's virtue and what's vice? Sometimes that gets confused, and like I go back to, it has a lot to do with fruits. What are they trying to move us away from or toward? They're trying to move us toward destruction. They hate mankind. They want you to be an automaton with a chip in your head, being told what to do every hour, every minute of the day, and when that's no longer useful for them, to turn you off. Alrighty. Well, I didn't mean to take up everybody's time, and I've really kind of gone too far, probably. Remove the commandments and you get lawlessness. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You got to be careful about how you define commandments. I've spent a lot of time talking about that over the last few years, my religion series and all that. My explanation of the origins of Judaism, which I've talked about before Dr. Adler even put out his book, but that just solidified what I said. Be careful about what you consider to be a commandment. Even in your New Testament, Jesus said that the scribes and Pharisees, the doctors of the law, and the priests put forth the commandments of men, and they're not God's. Okay, so I have an issue even with, there's 613 commandments. You're probably talking about the 10 commandments. There's even a problem with those, just in case you didn't know. But the 613 commandments, there are a lot of problems with those. A lot of problems. It has to do with legalese, lawfare, and priestcraft. A lot of it. God didn't author a lot of that. Not even a chance. And as far as the Ten Commandments are concerned, there are some issues there as well in the way they're interpreted, and that's why I like to go back to the Hebrew. And if I can't verify something by using, and I've talked about it before on many occasions, if I can't go in and tear a word apart using Notarikon, Tamura, Thashrak, and Gematria, if I can't make it make sense, then I know that that's been manipulated. And almost everything's been manipulated. So, for instance, thou shalt not kill. I talked about that before and what that really means. It means that you will not kill an innocent person. And there's no excuse. You can't even justify it in war. Say, well, I was commanded to go over there and kill those people. Well, if they got in the way, you kill an innocent person, you're going to pay the price yourself. Period. End of story. Okay, that's really what it says. And then thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, what's adultery? Well, it's pretty definitive what it is. It's not sex outside of marriage. It's stealing another man's wife specifically, or a woman who's married who, under the Israelite culture, tradition, and the commandment, a woman who's married who cheats on her husband, and of course the guy who cheats with her, they're adulterers. Sex outside of marriage isn't adultery. As a matter of fact, there are provisions for that, but they don't want you to know about it because, then they can't control you. They set up stakes. The way Jesus mentioned is, you hypocrites, you deny entering into the kingdom, and then you don't let others enter in either because of your definitions, the way that you've lawfared the Word of God. I will not submit to priestcraft. I will not submit to lawyercraft. I will not. Especially priestcraft. This is way too far. Okay. If you're wondering if I'm tired, yeah, I am. It's been a rough month. The military's gone woke. Boy, isn't that the truth. They've changed the U.S. Army ad back to male. So, yeah, that's right, Roosevelt. They couldn't get white Southern boys to sign up for the military anymore because of all the woke crap and the putting down of white people and promoting all of this degeneracy. So now, yeah, they're advertising for the male soldiers again because they want them to fight the war. Don't let your sons join. You tell them what they're being set up for. They're not fighting for freedom and liberty and the Constitution and even the lives of their families. They're not. They're supporting an illegitimate, criminal, corrupt, evil regime. And these wars are wars that are evil, not for defense. And especially don't let your daughters in. And I've talked about that before too. Well, that's a problem too, Margie. I'm not going to go there tonight, Sokolo. The law was fulfilled in Christ. See, you misunderstand what it means by fulfilled. It doesn't mean it's done away with, and even he said that. Fulfilled means he did it. He did the law. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that because he did it, it doesn't exist anymore. That's not it at all. Understanding the history of the first century and what Rome was trying to do to put down the Messianic rebellion against Rome, you have to understand what all that was about. And Jesus fulfilling the law was an attempt by Rome, by Paul, and by people like Philo, people like that, Josephus, that group of people, to destroy the Messianic movement which was standing against Rome. So if the law was fulfilled, guess what? Judaism disappears, right? There are more difficulties with that than you realize. No, the law was not done away. Does that mean you can go kill somebody now? No. No. Fulfilled means he did it to the letter. Therefore, they couldn't find any fault in him. Again, I'm not sold on the idea of a Jewish Messiah, Jesus as a Jewish Messiah. I think that all the evidence points to the fact that he was a Samaritan. All of it. He didn't even believe in the oral tradition. He didn't like that at all. It even says that in the New Testament. That escaped some of the Roman authors who wrote the New Testament. They didn't know these little nuances. Well, they had Josephus there to help them and some other people, but some of these nuances slipped by them. So,
Now, I'm really careful about quoting stuff from Jesus, especially anything about fulfilling the law, meaning that it's done away with. That's not what it means at all. Sorry to burst your bubble there, but Jefferson 33. God says even lusting after a man's wife is adultery.
well, at least you got it down to a man's wife. A lot of people say you can't look on a woman because if you do so, you're lusting and that's a sin. No. That's nature. That's how God intended it. The idea of when Jesus said, when you interpret this using the proper tools that are set before you, and that you're not going along with some crazy preacher somewhere. When Jesus said, you can't even, if you look at a woman to lust after her, you already committed adultery in your heart. Well, you're not going to be convicted of adultery, but the point is you're on your way to doing something. But he's exactly, when he said woman, he meant a man's wife. That's what he was talking about. So you're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. Lusting after another man's wife, trying to figure out how to get her away from him and all that kind of stuff, that's theft. And where that comes in is the covet, thou shalt not covet commandment, which means you shall not do what? Covet thy neighbor's house, thy neighbor's wife, or anything that is thy neighbor's. So in that regard, you are committing, you're coveting. And if you continue down that road, justifying yourself, yeah, you'll end up committing adultery, but you're still not committing adultery. That was a little too far in the Greek translation. Okay, a little too far. But you were right. That looking on a woman and saying, man, I'd like to make her my wife. I'd like to do this with her. And that's natural. That's on, there are parameters. But looking at a woman and finding her extremely attractive and having those thoughts is not evil. I'm sorry, you Christian zealots, I guess I'll say, you got it wrong. It's specifically about coveting another man's wife is committing adultery in your heart. That's what that's about. So you got that much right, so that's great. Which brings up a point. I don't know where this stuff is coming from, but on my YouTube, I'm getting tons of these Instagram accounts, ladies, of course. I don't subscribe to Instagram. What are they doing? They coming onto YouTube to try to increase the, show themselves and then get you to go on Instagram and subscribe to them. I just block them. But I must get 50 of these a day. I don't mean to exaggerate, but I'll bet you I get 50 of these things. They're gorgeous. They're probably AI enhanced, right? I like the female form as much as any other guy, but this is ridiculous. I'm getting all these things on there. And I even get it on my ex account. I have to just block them just almost immediately. So they're trying to get your mind off, men's minds in particular. They're trying to get off of the situation as we're faced with right now, and get us to put down our responsibilities and just play, I guess, on virtual reality, which I'm not into, But yeah, I've been getting hit with a lot of those. I don't know if the rest of you gentlemen are, but I certainly am, and it's really a Yahusha established tour. David Allen, like I said, I'm not going to get into that tonight. I'll just say two things about your name there. There's no you in God's name. Sorry.
That's been promulgated by people who are absolutely 100% wrong. Okay, that's not the case. There's no ooh sound in God's name. There just isn't. Okay, in that one, you're talking about the YHVH. There isn't. Okay, and you're saying that he established Torah. Well, all right. Well, you need to read this book here. Okay, you need to read that. Yeah, now Yeshua, that's different. That's not God's name. That there are similarities, but there's a reason for that one. Okay, but in the Tetragrammaton, there's no U sound in it. Uh, that came about because of the idea of the U came about because of some Greek correlations, but it's definitely not a U. Okay, it can't be. If it is, there's a problem, and I'm not going to get into why tonight. But no, I don't go for that at all. UCJ, who wants a woman these days anyway? I told a story once, but I didn't finish it, so I think I finished it like the next video. I was in a place where there were these security guards, and there were gang wars all night long. You could hear bullets flying over our RV park and yelling and screaming and all this stuff. And I'd gotten to know the security guards pretty well. And one night it was particularly active, and like I said, you could hear bullets whizzing over our RVs. And I heard these footsteps run up to my RV, and bam, 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 they're knocking on the door. Roy, we're security. Hey. And so I opened the door, and they said, "What do we do? What do we do?" They're shooting, and I said, "Dig a foxhole," and I slammed the door. I opened it back up. I said, "God, I'm just kidding, guys. We'll go see what's going on." So anyway, things calmed down. We figured out what was happening. The cops came, and nobody got killed or shot that we know of that night. But it was kind of funny because we sat around kind of talking for a little while, and the guy said, "Gee, Roy, yeah, that was amazing. Aren't you afraid of anything? Doesn't anything scare you?" And I said, "Yeah, a bad woman." They are scary. You want to see something scary? A bad, evil woman is scary. And I don't like those. Mahdi, false savior, will be for Jews and Islam. They talk about, see, like I said, all the Abrahamic religions are, I don't care which one you choose. All the Abrahamic religions are corrupted. Every jack last one of them. And I just, Margie Sokolow, that's a nice interpretation. I'm glad you're happy with it. See, you don't understand, I guess, that I'm not even certain that Jesus existed as such. That what we have in the New Testament is a amalgamation of several different people into a specific character. I'm not saying that a person like that didn't exist, but in my estimation, number one, he was not Jewish, he was Samaritan. So that makes almost everything in the New Testament suspect. Okay, so I hope you understand what my position is. You might feel differently, and that's okay, but I don't go there anymore. Potato launchers and a naughty woman. Oh, you're afraid of Mars Gold? Hey, Mars Gold. Yeah, potato launchers. Yeah, they can knock you on your bean. That's for sure. Well, now I see people starting to spout a lot of Christian stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to go there tonight. I'm not going to do that. I'll just say that if Jesus paid all the price for you, then what the fuck are you doing here?
No, I'm not drunk. I'm just trying to make a point. If Jesus does it all for you, then why are you going through a mortal existence learning lessons? Jesus didn't do it all for you. I'm sorry, he didn't. Not in my estimation. If you want to believe that, that's certainly your right, and I can understand why you want to feel that way, but the evidence on the ground says quite differently. Quite the opposite. There are philosophies that say that God is still learning, and he's learning through your experience. I'm not saying that's true, but there are philosophies, religious philosophies, spiritual philosophies that say that, which is that each one of us is contributing to God getting more understanding. Now that sounds hypocritical and heretical to a lot of us, but really, isn't that exactly where Bill Gates is going as well? Where all this digital stuff is being used and correlated and collected by these super computers so that they can understand all of the different experiences of all life and then with that control it. So they're trying to mimic God. Kind of like building the Tower of Babel, however you want to say it. So they're building this thing where they can have life extension, not have to go through the trials of life, and also collect information so that they can become God. So I think there's some truth to what it's saying. I heard a rabbi say, and I know that, again, I'm critical of a lot of the things that are there, but he said something that was interesting. He said that, why did God create things? He didn't want to be alone. And in that verse in Genesis where it says, God says it's not good for man to be alone, let's create a companion for him. God was revealing that he didn't want to be alone. And I think there's some credence to that, quite a bit actually. But I said I wasn't going to pontificate anymore.
All right. I want my progeny's future back. Boy, amen to that. Region 9 till I die. Yes, I agree. How do you spell that? Samaritan. Samaritan.
And it goes back to the Teheb. Somebody asked me here to do another presentation on the Samaritan prophet, the Teheb, who I think actually he was actually crucified by Pilate. That's in Josephus. And there's more about him than there is about Jesus in Josephus. So there was an assimilation by Jewish writers and other people in the first century, in my estimation, taking what the Samaritan prophet was doing, the Teheb, and then putting it together with some of James's teachings and examples. And then some others. I mean, there were a bunch of people that claimed to be messiahs in the first century BC through the first century AD. And it's in my book, The Crimson Thread. There were quite a few of them. Judas of Sepphoris. Let's see if I can remember his name. There are several names. I'm not recalling all of them now, but there were dozens of them. So how did this one stand out amongst all of them? Well, there are reasons for that. And the Samaritan prophet was put aside. He was the one that was rejected by the Jews, not Jesus.
Interesting. What do I think about Islam? I've talked about that before, Alan.
Islam is a production that was done by either Muhammad or somebody with him, or he took advantage of it. All it is, and Dr. Eisenman that I've talked about before, the Dead Sea Scrolls scholar, he's talked about this too. Islam is nothing more than taking the principles of the Qumranian community, the Messianic movement of the first century, um, especially their purity laws and their revenge revenge laws, I guess, for lack of a better term. Islam took that, and they took portions of the Talmud, because the Talmud came, the Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmuds came about around. The oral tradition had been around for a long time, but they codified it in the first, second, and third centuries A.D. And then that was available to the people that created Islam in the sixth century A.D. And that's all they did. They just took aspects of Christianity, specifically the Messianic movement of the first century, the Qumranian type, Dead Sea Scroll type stuff. They took that and they took the Talmud and they synthesized it. So that's what Islam is. Okay. The name of Allah, however, isn't a different God. Allah is just is the Aramaic form of El. Jesus, when he was on the cross, is said to have said, Eli, Eli, or Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, right? My God, why have you forsaken me? So there's the El right there. He didn't say Yahweh. Isn't that funny? He didn't call Yahweh. Why? Because he's Yahweh? Yeah, there's some things going on there. But, and a lot of Christians would say that. But the point is, he was talking to this El person. And Jesse of BP Earthwatch did a really good presentation on this some time ago. And I mentioned it in one of my live streams. I don't quite go as far as he does, but I understand what he's saying about these multiple gods in Psalms 82, which defines that council of the gods, and what Elohim means is gods, plural. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what to say. I shouldn't even go there. I said I wasn't going to go there tonight.
I don't know why I'd keep doing that. I thought I should monograph on tonight. He probably is. He probably is. It says in Scripture, one man cannot take to sin. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very careful with the Hebrew Scriptures, okay? I'm very careful with them. Okay, if you want to believe in Jesus, that's fine. I don't mind that. Just ask God to save me in the name of Jesus Christ. I don't mean to laugh at you. You know, that's not kind of me. But all I'll say about it is this. I don't even think you know what the name Jesus Christ means. And I don't think you really understand how it was used in the time subsequent to Paul. I'll just leave it at that. Spiral Bear. Oh, really? Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I've been to seminary school and I've seen behind the curtain myself. Yeah, I think you and I have talked about that in one way or another in a lot of different ways. Yeah, it's things just aren't the way they've been presented to us. And, you know, and that's why I say maybe I've been too pushy in talking about these things for too long, because they are divisive too. Some of the things I've said tonight, obviously divisive. So maybe I should just stick on the three pillars. Liberty, loving God. Let's put it in the right order. Loving God, loving your fellow man, and the principle of liberty.
I'm just going to stick with those from now on. I'm not going to, at least I say that. Try not to get into the doctrinal contentions and disputations that really serve nothing. Is that not being valiant for God? Depends upon your point of view. I think that that's probably, in my estimation now, I think that's probably more honest and more godlike than trying to convince somebody else to believe the way you do. I don't want to be in that employ anymore. Abraham supposedly was supposed to have progeny that were going to bless all the nations of the earth. Boy, isn't that a joke? That certainly didn't happen, and it's not happening. Why? All right. Well, I've said too much already. Gone on for an hour. I'm gonna let y'all go. Friday night, maybe y'all have other things to do. This was an impromptu. I decided to do it the last minute, so I didn't have any real plan. I just thought, man, it's been a long time. I've got a free night. Maybe somebody would like to have a chat, and so I just wanted to do it for that reason. No specific agenda. I think we've talked about a couple of different things. The bottom line is, as usual, your government hates you. It's not for you, it's for itself. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Keep your situational awareness on high. They're allowing this new army they brought in to start causing problems, and yet you'll be the ones that will be considered the criminals. Defending yourself, so you got to be careful. Right? Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Stay out of the way. What does that mean? Try not to partake in what they're doing. You have to survive, but don't fully engage in the system. Try to pull away from it as much as you can. Tucker Carlson, thanks for interviewing Putin. I know you won't hear this, but I just want to make a public statement about it. I want to thank you for doing that. Scott Ritter was a little upset at you because he felt like you could have prepared better to understand where Putin was going to be coming from, but that's because Scott Ritter understands Putin. He's studied him all his life. You haven't. I would have probably conducted the interview in a slightly different way myself, but the fact is you did it, and it's made people aware of Russia, the Russian people, the Russian culture, and President Putin in particular, who is head and shoulders, mountains above Biden and his ilk. I don't think we have a leader in the United States, and we haven't had one for a long time, and we may never. Of the ability, character, and intelligence of Putin. It's pretty well being made manifest right now. Americans have been kidding themselves for a long time. That's un-American, Roy. No, that is American. Telling the truth is the greatest form of humility. And with that, I'll see you all later.